Welcome to Channel's Business Globe with me, Juliana Olayinka, from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. Coming up on today's show, as the Commonwealth marks another year under the theme Together We Thrive, I sat down for an exclusive interview with Secretary General Baroness Patricia Scotland in her final days in office. We reflect on her tenure, the evolving role of the Commonwealth in today's world, and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for its 56 member states. As she prepares to hand over the reins, what legacy does she leave behind, and what does the future hold for the Commonwealth? And Nigeria's coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, met Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados in Bridgetown last week. The high-level talks took place on the sidelines of the Sustainable Energy for All Summit, which gathered world leaders centered around the theme Sustainable Energy for Equity, Security and Prosperity. Fortunately, I was there and I'll be sharing the highlights. Then later, we take you inside a high-profile business matchmaking event in London, marking the launch of the UK-Nigeria Creatives Working Group. As a key milestone in the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership, this initiative is designed to foster innovation, creative collaboration and economic growth across 9 sectors. But first, as the Commonwealth marks another year under the theme Together We Thrive, the organisation prepares for a historic transition. After nearly a decade at the helm, Baroness Patricia Scotland is set to step down as Secretary General, leaving behind a legacy of advocacy, resilience and reform. In an exclusive sit-down, she reflects on her tenure, the challenges of navigating a rapidly shifting global landscape and the future of the 56-member bloc. Commonwealth Secretary General Baroness Patricia Scotland KC, it is an absolute pleasure speaking with you once again on Channel's television.
Well, it's my delight to be here because this, of course, will be my last Commonwealth service as Secretary General. So I'm very pleased that I'll get to talk to you before I depart on the 31st of March. So thank you for having me.
Before we get into the meat of the discussion, I want to, of course, talk about the Commonwealth and the theme of this year's Commonwealth, which is Together We Thrive. Now, I try to be an optimist, but given what's going on around the world, some would say it feels as if we're not very together at the moment. Can you talk to me about why that theme was selected and where you believe, not just as the SG, but also as Baroness Scotland, we are in the future of our world?
Well, I think it's never been more important that we emphasise who we are as a Commonwealth family. And the Commonwealth has always been a fulcrum around which consensus has been able to be delivered. And if you think about our 56 countries, coming from 5 different regions, so different geographical locations, different economic positions, different races, different religions, we really are representing 1/3 of the world. And what the Commonwealth has done for 75 years is we've thrived. We haven't just survived. We've helped each other, we've supported each other, we have dug deep into our diversity and pulled out that richness. And we need, at this time of global uncertainty, of a hostility, when so many people are frightened and their isolationist views are rising and nationalistic views appear to be dominating, we just need to remind ourselves that for our Commonwealth family, that's not our history, that's not our present, and that's not our future. We have thrived as a result of our diversity. We've thrived because we have rested on our friendship, on our values, on our principles. And at every time of stress in the last 75 years, the Commonwealth countries have come together to support together each other, and we have thrived. So this is a really important reminder for all of us that we are the final arbiters of our own good fortune. We have choice. What we do defines who we are, and how we do it is really important. And one of the things that I've heard people say is that if the Commonwealth didn't exist, how would we create it? Because we'd need it.
Would you say that this year's Commonwealth Day is more important or holds more symbolism than it has for several years? And I know you've steered this ship through very difficult times.
I think if you look back to 2016, we had no idea how many traumatic things we would face.
They seem to keep coming.
They do, because we started off with all of those climatic disasters, the hurricanes, the storms, the cyclones, and then we had the impact of all those things economically. People's economies were being destroyed. The debt had gone up exponentially. And we created Meridian, which was the new debt system to be able to manage both private and public debt. We now have about $4.5 trillion under management to help our member states. But then, when we thought we were just breathing and starting to come up, we were hit by COVID. And we had to be ready for that. And I'm glad, because what we did in the Commonwealth, as you remember, is we had created a digital platform so that when COVID hit, we were probably one of the only organisations who could flip a switch and go from 24-hour face-to-face to 24-hour virtual. And you sort of thought, well, okay, we've had the economic tsunami, we've had COVID, we've had the real tsunami on climate, and now maybe we're getting out of it, and along came the Russia-Ukraine debacle, which caused huge issues in terms of cost of living. And as you say, they have just kept on coming. We've probably got more critical wars going on individually. I think about 52 different arenas involving about 92 countries. That's probably higher than we've been at any time after the Second World War. And yet there has been real opportunities to come up with solutions. When Dickens said it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, that's sort of how we are now, because we've done masses on how do we take advantage of the digital revolution. How do we use AI to help us better predict disasters, better interdict? How do we share information? How do we come up with the solutions faster, better? How do we increase intra-Commonwealth trade, which we have? We've gone from the 500s of billions. We're now probably about 950 billion intra-Commonwealth trade. Will be $1 trillion by next year, 2 trillion by the year after. So what have we learnt from all that? When we come together to come up with the solutions, no matter how hard they are, we can do it. We just can't do it on our own.
What are you going to miss? What are you not going to miss?
I'm going to miss all of them, because it has been the most extraordinary privilege to walk alongside our member states in their times of real difficulty and their times of joy. And for Nigeria, I will always remember the privilege of participating in the electoral process and trying to help. And I was really touched when I was given an award, a peace award, for helping with that. So all of that, making peace across our Commonwealth, I will really treasure.
Elsewhere, in a bold and controversial move, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced the abolition of NHS England, bringing the health service back under direct government control. The decision, framed as a drive for efficiency and accountability, aims to eliminate bureaucracy and streamline decision-making. However, critics warn of disruption, centralisation risks and the loss of independence oversight. Hello, Simon.
Hello.
Spring's here.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's so nice to see the daisies
stories. It's been quite busy domestically. Of course, everything that's happening in the White House is affecting the UK, but we've had our own big stories, nothing bigger than the scrapping of NHS England. And I was away, and I was saying to you that when you are away, you don't see the magnitude of it, but it is pretty big.
It is big, especially as the amount of money that's been put into it, and how big a transformation this was when David Cameron and George Osborne set it up.
Yeah.
I think the idea in principle is quite a good one. They wanted to take politics away from the NHS, which obviously looks good to the general public, especially if you're a Conservative government, to put NHS on a pedestal and to say, look, from now on, general elections, it'll be hard to politicise the NHS, to talk about the different sort of levels of funding. We're going to have a completely separate body. What Labour are saying is that this is the world's biggest quango, which is a great headline, that they are cutting, so they are taking millions and billions of pounds out of middle management, essentially, and they say there are too many layers of management, and that this should go on frontline services. That's always good with the voters. But it is distinctly un-Labour to essentially be taking a lot of money out of the NHS. They are doing that, and they're losing a lot of jobs from this, tens of thousands of jobs, which again is very unlike Labour. So they're almost moving as if they're a Conservative government. But I think they've kind of got public opinion on side.
I was going to say, there didn't seem to be any uproar.
No,
it's
if
kind
you
of
were
like
to
Elon
say
Musk Doge
we're
style.
losing 10,000 or 20,000 NHS jobs, there would be uproar.
Yes.
But if you talk about them as middle managers or pencil pushers,
Cutting out the fat.
Exactly. I think they phrased it quite well. So you had that, and that's it's going to be interesting to see how that works. They say there's too many layers of management, so everyone's doubling up on each other. No one really knows what's happening. It'll be interesting to see if in a couple of years something comes to replace this, because I feel like it would be a good idea to have some kind of interim between government and the NHS, so that it can't be
community
politicised.
Involvement too, right? Local. We haven't heard much about from West Streeting, the Health Secretary.
No, interesting that, isn't it? And I think
quite interesting.
Along with benefits cuts that we heard about a couple of days ago, I think there's quite a lot of unease within the Labour Party, because
Definitely.
I think maybe they signed up to a Labour Party that has transitioned from Jeremy Corbyn, which was only a couple of years ago, very hard left, to what essentially looks like a Tory government, or looks like a
Blair
sort of middle,
2.0.
exactly, or even further right than Tony Blair. I think quite a few people, the Deputy Leader, of course, Angela Rayner, sitting next to the Prime Minister as they were announcing these cuts, it's quite hard to, I think, square that with a lot of Labour MPs. So they have to sort of play a political game. They have to put on a brave face, and they have to maybe stay away from the cameras for a couple of days, because I think a lot of
They're
them...
not supporting him.
And it wasn't in their manifesto. It wasn't what people voted for Labour. But obviously they've got this big financial black hole that we keep hearing about. And so they will be pointing towards, this is the things that we have to do if we're going to increase spending on defence, which we've promised to do, and various other things, house building.
A buffer against Trump's trade threats, but also as well, Starmer, very popular, really riding on this popularity, not just here and across Europe, but across the world.
And hosting leaders at the moment to try and come up with a coalition of the, I've forgotten what it was called, the coalition of the willing, to be able to provide Ukraine with support. He seems to be taking the reins with Emmanuel Macron. I guess because there is a bit of a vacuum with Donald Trump going away from what America has so traditionally done, which is be a policeman of the West and to be leading the West. Now there's this big vacuum, and Sir Keir Starmer has stepped in there, which is not unlike what previous prime ministers have done, of course. Rishi Sunak was very much a champion of Ukraine, as was Boris Johnson before him. Liz Truss sitting on her tank. The former prime ministers were very much there, but I think he's really reveling in this, and he needed this, didn't he?
Is it going to last?
Probably not, because there'll probably be a spat with Donald Trump at some point. But
and the spring statement.
Yeah, there's lots
welfare
of
cuts.
There's lots of. I mean, growth is what they need, right? They need the economy to start to perform.
And it's
Otherwise,
not.
people will. If it were to do that, then I think a lot of things would be forgiven. But at the moment, it's very difficult to see this lasting. But he is riding the wave, and it's coming at a perfect time, because you remember just a couple of weeks ago, there was calls for elections, there was votes in Parliament for elections, there was almost riots on the streets, or there was a couple of months ago. So this couldn't have come at a better time. And quite a lot of people on the right of politics like what America's doing, like what Trump's doing, and suddenly Trump's good friends with Sir Keir Starmer.
Yes.
How can you then attack Keir Starmer if Trump's saying nice things about him?
Yes, that's true.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, Nigeria's coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, met Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados in Bridgetown last week. The high-level talks took place on the sidelines of the Sustainable Energy for All Summit, which gathered world leaders centred around the theme Sustainable Energy for Equity, Security and Prosperity. And we take you inside a high-profile business matchmaking event in London, marking the launch of the UK-Nigeria Creatives Working Group. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London. Against the backdrop of the Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum in Barbados, Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, met with Prime Minister Mia Mottley to discuss deepening economic collaboration between their nations. Their talks focused on shared priorities, including climate resilience, trade and sustainable energy investment, reflecting a broader push for stronger South-South partnerships. The meeting took place as leaders, investors and policymakers convened in Bridgetown for SE for All's flagship summit, which saw over $900 million committed toward clean energy access and transition initiatives. Key announcements included the launch of a $500 million distributed renewable energy fund for Nigeria and the unveiling of Barbados's energy transition and investment plan, setting a bold vision for net zero emissions. And now to my final story. In a landmark move to bolster creative collaboration, the United Kingdom and Nigeria have inaugurated the Creative Industries Technical Working Group. This initiative, part of the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership, aims to deepen bilateral ties and stimulate growth across sectors such as film, music, fashion, architecture, advertising and gaming.
The aim of economic growth between two of our countries, Nigeria and the UK, is something that's a priority for both governments. And the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership that was signed a year ago, yes, it's a platform for discussions between our two countries on 8 particular sectors, of which today's event on the creative economy is one of those 8 sectors. And these are areas where we see mutual benefit, where the UK has some sort of economic comparative advantage, but so too does Nigeria. And so we're looking for mutual growth. We're looking to create jobs in both countries. And indeed, in the case of the creative economy, I think it's really exciting. It's exciting for a number of reasons. First, Nigeria's creative economy is booming. You know, Nollywood on Netflix, Africa, Nigeria fashions, Nigerian Afrobeat, contemporary art, the Artex Lagos exhibition. Nigeria is booming in the creative sector. But the UK also has a massive creative ecosystem that is a gateway to the world. And so today's event is trying to get people from both our economies talking, how can we do more co-production? How can we facilitate market access for Nigerian creative people? And how can we make sure that that partnership grows? And your Honourable Minister for Art and Culture and the Creative Economy, the Honourable Minister Musa Musawa, she has a very ambitious plan and we want to get behind that. And that plan includes potentially creating up to 2 million jobs if we can grow the creative economy in Nigeria. But in terms of your specific question about how do you create opportunities for young people in the creative sector, my first suggestion is that they need to be talking to the producers and the agents in the Lagos creative economy. The UK government, you mentioned the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office was organising this event. Partly, it's actually mainly been done by the Department for Business and Trade in the UK, for which there's a team in Lagos and Abuja, and some of my colleagues are here today to facilitate this event. And they are very keen to facilitate any business opportunities between our two countries. So please reach out to us. We are a team in the British High Commission, Department of Business and Trade, and we'll do what we can to help. So I'd give you 2 outcomes that we're hoping to get from today, but I need to give you a little bit of context before I explain the first one. The first outcome is what are the facilitation issues, what are the barriers to creating more investment opportunities in both our countries in the creative economy. Because yesterday, our trade envoy for Nigeria, Florence Esholomi, who's a Member of Parliament for London, she's been recently appointed the UK's trade envoy to Nigeria, and she hosted the first meeting of a technical working group on the creative economy yesterday here in London, with both sides, people from the UK government and the Nigerian government, and also business from the UK creative economy and business from the Nigerian creative economy. So the first outcome of today's event is to hear from businesses of what help do they need from both governments. How can we work on things to do with intellectual property or market access that would help provide a facilitation role for the creative economy in both our countries. The second outcome that we're really hoping for is that, of course, there are lots of people already collaborating on producing films, on producing music. There is business being done in this sector, and we are hopeful that some of the matchmaking that is enabled by the networking today will help people identify new opportunities for investment, new opportunities to produce great creative output. And that business matching, getting businesses in both countries to talk together more effectively, is also helped, of course, by this massive diaspora link we have between our two countries. So I've just been talking to British Nigerian businesses that are based in both countries, and those are the people who are really going to help unlock opportunities for a wider set of investors, because they know both Nigeria and the UK, and I think it's fantastic, and I'm really, really enthusiastic about some of the conversations I'm hearing today.
I'm very excited. It's been an absolutely amazing event on both days. And really what I'm expecting to see is deliverables, actual timeline on the next time we're going to have our meeting, and in the first 1 year, what are our goals and objectives, and for us to actually achieve them. And like I was saying in the panel, is for us to have quick wins, which is very important, because it will also encourage the industry on both the Nigerian side and the UK side that, okay, this is not all talk, but it's action as well, and we're putting, our money where our mouth is. So, we're inviting the investors to come on board, the government, and all the key stakeholders to make this happen, because we need everyone to be united to have those deliverables and outcomes. I think one of the key things is what we spoke about was relationships. It's based on relationships. I know who you know on both sides. So if I don't know anyone in the UK, then I can't really partner. Who am I going to partner with in the UK for international co-productions? So I'm glad that, something has been done on the UK side where we're going to have like a database, of names that we can actually contact. So I think that's the first meeting point, who you're going to actually be working with. And then after that is a case of, just educating yourself on how both landscapes work. So how does, international co-productions work in the UK? What are the policies? How do you get funding? Who are the funders? Distribution, how that works. So these are all the key things that we spoke about. And I'm glad that, we're working towards having, better access to funds, especially for creators. That's one of the challenges that we always face, is where do we get funding? Whether you're doing fashion, music, film, TV, is always about funding. So it's more access to the funders. Okay, what are they looking for? What are the parameters? What are their requirements? And once you have those things in place, to have access to be able to pitch your projects and present your projects for investment. Also on the distribution side, okay, the distribution landscape in the UK is very different from Nigeria. And so it's working with, your partner to work on, okay, how can we maximize both nations that will benefit the project? And so I feel like the working group is a really big part of that, because the policies that's going to come out will actually drive and help initiate those conversations, and initiate those conversations with the distributors to come on board and say, this is what we're doing in terms of international co-productions, be part of this, because they're one of the key stakeholders, of course, because we can create all the content we want, but we need to have it distributed and get our money back, and so we can go on to make the next one. So those are some key areas that we spoke about, and just creating really that larger framework that makes it easier for creatives on both sides to actually come together and do projects. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, so very quickly, what do you hope to see in the next 2 to 5 years from this conversation?
I hope to see actual successful international co-productions being done, that we can actually have case studies to say, this is how we did it, and this is how it was successful. So that's what I expect to see.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today, but as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.